Hello, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software, and a brand new series on how to implement music and sound effects in Unity. I'm going to show you how to create a basic, simple music manager that will allow you to shuffle from a list of songs, never repeating a clip until everyone is played at least once. I'm going to show you how to create audio mixers, groups, and snapshots so you can control the mix between your music and sound effects. I'll show you how to wire up a UI to do that. And I'll show you how to use the snapshots to smoothly transition between peaceful music and combat music. In the initial video, we're just going to load all of our audio clips at once. They'll be built as part of the game build. Then I'm going to show you how you can use addressables, so you're only loading your audio clips asynchronously as you need them. This will reduce your initial load time. In future videos, I'll show you how to take that concept a step farther using Unity's Cloud Content Delivery. You can host your audio clips in the cloud, and instead of deploying them as part of your build, your app will request them from the cloud as it needs them. Not only will this reduce your build size and installation time, but it will allow you to control the content of your audio, sound effects, and music files. You can add new music or update the contents of your music on the cloud without requiring your users to install a new build of your game. I'm also going to show you how to use dependency injection and a signal bus to decouple things so that your audio manager is separated from the logic that plays music and sound effects. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a chair and grab your favorite beverage and follow along as I teach you how to implement music and sound effects in Unity. Okay, before we actually get into how to set up the audio, I want to show you the environment that I built for this tutorial. And I'm using a number of assets for this. If we hit pause here so I can go into my editor view, you can see I've got a number of assets, and I'll put links to all these in the description, but we'll start off with the actual environment, which is the PBR Graveyard from Nature Manufacturer. I'm using a lot of Infinity PBR assets. I'm using the Goblin player character, and then for monsters, I've got their Gargoyle, a Devil from their Devil's pack, and a Minotaur from their Minotaur pack. I don't know if you pronounce that Minotaur or Minotaur. Some other assets that I'm using a camera pack, RPG cameras and controllers. And again, I'll put links to all these in the description. I'm also using a basic motions animation pack and a UI pack, Fantasy GUI UI. And I'll put links, like I said, for all those in the description. Let me give you a quick walkthrough of the environment here. I'm just going to take my Goblin and I'm going to run around. And forgive me if the animations aren't perfect. I just threw something together real quick so I could have something that we can add music and sound effects to. So I just killed a Minotaur. I like the way the Minotaurs will come chasing me and try to attack me. Do an axe attack or a ram attack. The Gargoyles will fly at you and attack. They're pretty cool. Going to go run past them, and I'm just going to go show you the devils up at over there by the cathedral. Go run past. I'm going to actually fight this gargoyle. Okay, and there's the devil charging at me. Spin around so we can see him with the light on his face. All right, so that's enough demo of the environment. All right, so to create an audio mixer, we go up to Window, Audio, Audio Mixer, and this opens up the Audio Mixer tab. And then we can click a plus sign here to create a mixer. We're going to call this Main Mix. And you can see it creates snapshots and groups and views. And there's one group already, and it's called Master. So select that, and then click the plus sign, and that will create a new group under Master. And we're going to call this Music. Now go back up to Master. So we want to create another child under Master. We're going to call this one Sound Effects. Okay, and then go back up to Music. And we're going to create a child under Music. And we're going to call that Combat. Select Music again. Click the plus sign. And we're going to call that Peaceful. So this is our audio mixer group setting. So we have a master mix. This will control our master volume. Okay, we're going to have music. This will control the overall music volume. And then underneath of that, we have combat music and peaceful music. And so what we're going to want to do is create a couple of snapshots, one for combat and one for peaceful, so that we can smoothly transition between combat music and peaceful music. So under snapshot, click a plus sign, and we'll call this combat. And I'm actually going to rename this one to be peaceful, because it already had given us a snapshot called snapshots. Now in the peaceful snapshot, we just want to pull the combat music all the way down. And then for combat, we want to pull peaceful all the way down and make sure combat is up. So you can see we have a snapshot for peaceful music and a snapshot for combat music. And when you actually transition between these at runtime, you'll see that it will smoothly transition between the two, giving you a nice crossfade effect. The next thing we want to do is we want to expose some variables for the audio mixer that we can manipulate through code. So we're going to pick our master here. And up here under volume, I'm going to right click and say expose volume of master to script. And if you come down here and look at exposed parameters, we've got this one. It just says my exposed parameter. I'm going to rename that master volume. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing for the music volume. So select music, right click on volume and say expose. Come down here and we will right click on that and say rename music volume. And then we're going to go over to sound effects, volume, right click, expose, drop that down, right click, rename, and I'm just going to call that SFX volume. So we'll be able to access these from code later on, and I'll show you how to do that when we wire up the UI. Okay, now that we've exposed our variables, it's time to start creating our music manager. So I'll start by creating an empty game object, and I will call that music manager. And we're going to go and create a scripts folder for that. So under scripts, I'm going to create a new folder and call it audio. And we'll double click in there, and I'm going to right click, create C# script, music manager. And let Unity think about that for a second, or 10 seconds. All right, so I'm going to select our music manager object and drag that script onto it. And then I'm going to double click that to open it up in the editor. Get rid of these unused using statements and temporarily get rid of all this boilerplate code. Now we're going to create some serialized fields. We want a list of audio clips. And we need to import the using statement for list, which is system collections generic. So we're going to want to have peaceful music, combat music, and I want to have another one just called temp list. Alrighty. I'm also going to want to have a serialized field for our audio mixer. And that's going to require us to pull in unityengine.audio. Okay, so let's jump out into Unity and we will assign those. Okay, so for the audio mixer, I just click this little target thing here and I select main mix. So there's our audio mixer. Now we want to populate our peaceful music and combat music. So I'm going to right click on Music Manager and say Properties. And this opens up a dialog that won't lose context when I click away like that. So if we go to our music folder and go into combat, you can see I've got all this combat music. So I have an asset pack for music where I pulled a lot of these songs from, and I will put a link to that in the description as well. There's tons and tons of music in there, and I just pulled in a tiny subset of it. But I'm going to just see how you've got these serialized fields here for peaceful music, combat music. I'm going to select all these combat music songs, and I'm just going to drag them over to combat music. And you can see it populated the list like so. And then I'm going to go over to music, peaceful, and I'm going to pick all these songs, and I'm going to drag them into peaceful music. And I'll go ahead and close this. So now I've got all of these songs populated in our music manager. And let's listen to one of these songs here. I was just switching over to OBS to look at our mix. I think that looks like a pretty good mix there. Maybe I'll turn that up a little bit. I can remix it in the video editor. So we have that one. Check out some combat music. Okay, so I don't know why I hit play, but now that we've got all those songs, we're going to go into our music manager script and we're going to configure it to initialize our cues for peaceful music, combat music. We're also going to initialize and create our audio sources, and it's going to grab references to our snapshots and our mixer groups and all that stuff so that we can access them at runtime. So I'm going to select Music Manager, double click on that to open it up in the editor. And we need to zoom in. I realized I was not zoomed in when I was editing that code before. Sorry about that. It's hard to remember all these things. Okay, so we need to add a bunch of variables here. First of all, I want, for audio mixer group, I want peaceful audio mixer group, and I want combat audio mixer group. And we want to add some audio sources. So you guessed it, peaceful audio source, combat audio source, and I'm just going to add one called audio source. So basically the way this is going to work, when we switch to peaceful, I'm going to set that audio source to be equal to peaceful audio source. And you'll see how that works in a little bit. I want to add some snapshots. So audio mixer snapshot, and we want a peaceful snapshot and a combat snapshot. Alrighty. And we want to have a list of audio clips. Actually, we already got that. I want cues of audio clips. So let's see, cue audio clip. We want a peaceful track cue. We want a combat track cue. And then I just want track cue. And then finally, I do want a list of audio clips. And that will just be current playlist. All right, so we want to have our start method. And the very first thing I want to do is configure our audio sources. So this function does not exist yet. So I'm going to hit Alt-Enter, create method. Boom. I'm not sure if that key combination will work in Visual Studio. I'm using JetBrains Rider. I know there's an equivalent combination to create the method for you. I think you could also just right-click on it and select from the context menu to do that. So what I want to do and configure audio sources. First thing I want to do is grab our snapshots. So combat snapshot. Okay, that's going to be equal to audio mixer. And you remember we assigned our audio mixer in the inspector. And we're going to say find snapshot. And we want to use a string, which is the name of the snapshot. And you may remember we called it combat volume. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a constant for that. And I'm going to call that combat volume key. Get over there so I can see that. Now, this does not exist, so that's actually referencing a totally different constants file, which is not what I want at all. Let me get rid of that. Let me get rid of that. And I'm just, for right now, I'm going to create this here. Public static class constants. And I'm going to have public const string combat volume key equals combat volume. And you can see that fixed that compiler error there. And let's add another one. We're going to say peaceful snapshot equals audio mixer.find snapshot constants.peaceful volume key. So let me see if it will do this for me. Yes. Oh, it didn't give me the value, of course, because it didn't know the value. Peaceful volume. All right. Oh, peaceful volume key. What's wrong with that? Public. There we go. All right, now we want to get our mixer groups. So combat audio mixer group equals audio mixer, find matching groups, constants dot combat volume key. But this time we're going to get it gives us an array, so we need to index into that. I want to make sure I'm naming those keys correctly. Let me go back into Unity, go to our audio mixer, and look at those exposed variables. Master volume, music volume. So that's not what I want. Okay, so I actually need to look for combat and peaceful. Combat and peaceful. So let me go back into our editor. And I'm going to rename this to just be combat and peaceful. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing here for peaceful audio mixer group equals audio mixer dot find matching groups constants dot peaceful, and because it's an array and we just want the first index, we'll do that. Okay, now that we've got our audio mixer groups, we want to actually create audio sources for those mixer groups. So what we're going to do is we're going to say combat audio source equals create audio source, and then we're going to pass in our combat audio mixer group. And then we're going to do the same thing for peaceful audio source equals create audio source, and pass in peaceful audio mixer group. Go ahead and create this create audio source function, and we're just going to call this mixer group. So how do we create an audio source? So the first thing we want to do is instantiate a game object. So I'm going to say audio, oops, go in there, var audio source game object equals new game object, and we're going to give it a name, and we're going to call it audio source. And again, I like to use constants for strings like this. Create constant, make it public, and we'll just say audio source. And all this is going to do is give this a name, so when you look at it in the inspector, it will say audio source. All right, so now that we've done that, we want to parent it to this component. So we are on the music manager, and so we want this to be a child of the music manager. So I'm going to say audio source.gameObject.transform.set parent transform. So now it is a child of the music manager. Let's add the audio source component to it. So we're going to say audio source game object dot add component audio source. So it will now have an audio source component. And now we want to set a bunch of parameters on that. So we want the audio source output audio mixer group to be the mixer group that we passed in. We want to set play on awake to false. Actually, yeah, that's right. We want to set loop to be true. And we want to tell it we don't want any spatial blend. And we want to set the volume to 1. And we want to return audio source. All right, so that should configure our audio sources. The next thing we want to do is initialize our track cues. So we want to have a random cue for combat music and peaceful music that we can pull from whenever we switch to that mode. So when we switch to peaceful, we want to grab the next song from that cue, but we're going to make sure that they're random when we create them. Let me just do it so to make more sense if you see what I'm doing. We want to say initialize track cues. And we're going to create that function. And I'm going to move that down below configure audio sources. And what do we want to do in here? We want our track cue to be a new cue. We want our combat track cue to be a new cue. And we want our peaceful track cue to be a new cue. And we want to set our temp list to be a new list. Alrighty. After that, we want to set our snapshot to the peaceful snapshot. So actually, I'm just going to call set, or do I want to say set peaceful? Set peaceful snapshot. And this is going to be public. And the reason I'm making this public is I want to add a context menu to this. So, oops. I want to add a context menu to that so that I can test this from within the editor. So I want to say peaceful. And then we're going to do the same thing for combat. Public void set combat snapshot. And the context menu for that will be combat. All right, so now what I want to do here is say set snapshot true. And this one false. All right, I'm going to come all the way down here. And I'm going to say void set snapshot bool is peaceful. Okay. You know, I'm actually going to rename these. I don't like these. I'm going to say play peaceful music and play combat music. And I'm going to set that to play peaceful music. I just think it makes more sense. Okay, so set snapshot. I want to say if we're peaceful, else, and we're going to say transition to peaceful music snapshot. That's a mouthful. Transition to combat music snapshot. And we're going to create that. And we're going to create that. All right, so what do we want to do in transition to peaceful music? We want to set our snapshot by saying transition to and give it a duration, so 1 second. So this will smoothly transition to the peaceful snapshot over the course of 1 second. Then we want to set our current playlist to be peaceful music. We want to set our audio source to be our peaceful audio source. And we want to set our track cue to be our peaceful track cue. All right. And then for combat, we want to say combat snapshot, transition to, over the course of 1 second. We want to set current playlists to be combat music. We want to set audio source to be combat audio source. And we want to set track cue to be combat track cue. All right, and after we do that, we're going to say shuffle and play. And let's go ahead and create that. Delete that. And I'm going to move that all the way to the bottom. All right, so shuffle and play. I'm going to call a stop all coroutines function. So what I'm going to do is when I start playing a song, I'm also going to start a coroutine that will basically yield until the song finishes playing, and then it will get the next song. So we want to just shuffle through all our songs until we leave this mode. And so if we're calling shuffle and play, we want to make sure that if that coroutine is running, that we kill it. So that's what stop all coroutines does. It will stop that coroutine. So now, if our track cue doesn't have any songs in it, so we played all the songs that we queued up, and remember we set track cue to be either combat or peaceful track cue. If it doesn't have any songs left, we want to repopulate it with a random ordering of all of our songs. And so the way we'll do that is I'm going to call a function called shuffle track cue. And actually hit my mouse wheel. Okay, so shuffle track cue. We had that temp list variable, and I'm going to clear that. And the reason I made that a member variable and instantiated it once and start is because I don't want to be creating garbage on the heap by instantiating and deleting. So I'm just clearing the contents of the list, and I'm going to rebuild it here. So now that we've done that, I want to iterate through all the tracks in our current playlist. So you remember our current playlist is either going to be combat music or peaceful music. So we're going to get each track and we're going to add it to our temp list. Right? And now we're going to randomly take entries out of that list and add them to our queue. So we're going to say while temp list.count is greater than 0. So as long as there's songs in that temp list, we're going to get a random index, and that's going to be random.range. We're going to go from 0 to temp list.count. And this random.range goes from 0 to a max value exclusive. So that means it's going to go from 0 to temp list count minus 1. Right? So we won't exceed the bounds of the array. Once we do that, we want to say that track queue in queue. So we're going to add an item to the queue, temp list, random index. So we're going to grab one of the songs at that random index from our temp list, and we're going to queue it up in our track queue. And then we want to remove it using remove at random index. So we'll do that until we've gotten all of the songs. So now our queue should be populated, and we should immediately call shuffle. Well, we should call play peaceful music, which should call set snapshot, which is going to populate that queue. And then it's going to call shuffle and play. So I need to add some code here to play the next track. Play next track. Going to go ahead and create that function. So play next track, we're going to get a clip from the queue. By just saying DQ. So we get a clip from the current track queue. We set that clip to our audio sources clip. And then we want to play our audio source. Not play on awake, just play. And then we want to start our code routine. Cue next track. And we want to pass in the length of that clip. All right, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say I enumerator. And we'll say cue next track. We'll take a float, which is the clip length. And we need to make sure we're pulling in the right namespace. So that's systems collections. Okay, we got that. And we want to do a yield, return new wait for seconds, clip length. Now, if I wanted to optimize this, I would cache this so that I'm not instantiating a new one every time we do this. You can go ahead and do that if you want. I just want to hurry up and get this thing going. Then I'm going to call shuffle and play again. So that will queue up a track and play it after this time has elapsed, after the previous track finished playing. So back in Unity, we've got our music manager with all of our songs, got our peaceful music, combat music. I am going to select the combat snapshot. So when I hit play, this should transition to peaceful and start playing peaceful music. All right. Now, if I right click on my music manager, I bring up my context menu. I'm going to hit combat. You see it smoothly transitioned to combat and started playing combat music. And if I hit combat again, you see it got another song from the queue and played that. Let's do peaceful. Turn that up a little bit. Oh, edit and play mode. All right, so there you see we can transition from peaceful to combat. It does a nice smooth crossfade when it does it. I showed you how you can use a context menu to test things. We haven't even wired this up to the game yet, and you can already test the functionality of this music manager. Well, I hope you found that useful, and if you did, do me a favor and click that like and subscribe button. It really does help me to support my channel. And let's review what we learned in this video so far. You've learned how to create audio mixer groups and snapshots. You've learned how to transition between snapshots to do a smooth crossfade between peaceful music and combat music, and how to create cues of songs for each category. I'm going to show you in the next video how to wire up a UI so you can control the mix between music volume and sound effects volume. And we're going to wire up the game logic so as you get closer to an enemy, it will automatically transition to combat. And then when you get out of range of them, it will automatically transition back to peaceful. In subsequent videos, I will show you how to use addressables so that you're not loading all of your sound effects and your music clips all at once when the game loads. And I'll take that a step farther and show you how to use Unity's cloud content delivery. And I'm also going to show you how to use dependency injection and a signal bus so that you can implement the observer pattern and decouple the playing of audio events from the logic that triggers the playing of those audio events. So be sure to head over to my Steam page if you haven't already and wish list my upcoming real-time cross-platform multiplayer card game Highland Panic, and check out the affiliate links in the description for all the asset packs that I use in this project. And full disclosure, because they are affiliate links, if you do buy any assets following those links, I will get a commission. So that's another great way to help support my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck on your game development journey.